Hi, Jesse here. Thank you for joining me for the Ant Village Video Journal. Before we get started in this video, I'd like to say thank you to my most recent patrons, Craig Warner, Ryan Duff, John DiLiberto, and Ryan Barrett. These guys have been helping support me in this journey through their generous donations at patreon.com. So thank you very much. Now let's get on to the video. This one's all about the PDC at Wheaton Labs. We arrived at Wheaton Labs the day before the PDC started, unloaded the truck, and had a look around at the acre where I'll be living for the foreseeable future. First things first, we needed a place to camp, and thankfully I had this big-ass tarp. So with a little bit of a rope and some pulling and tying it down, we had a nice little place to set our tent. It's not luxury living, but it'll do for the time being. I will say, this is one of the more beautiful places I've ever lived. Our first 2 weeks at the lab were all about the free PDC taught by PRI's certified instructor, Howard Story. There was lots of time spent listening to lecture, watching video, and learning all about permaculture concepts. If you'd like to know more about what we learned each day, you should check out Evan's Ant Village log at the Wheaton Labs forum on permies.com. This video is going to focus more on what we did outside of the classroom. Our first hands-on activity was refilling the rocket mass heater in Paul's living room. This particular rocket mass heater is a pebble style, so it's mostly filled with large stones, which create a lot of mass, and a bunch of pebbles, which allow convection currents to heat the house. This rocket mass heater, according to Paul, is the rocketiest one he's ever seen. It was topped off with a nice marble slab, and Paul should have plenty of heat throughout the winter. The next morning, I woke up to see the sunrise, and saw a large buck right next to my camp. He got pretty far away before I could get the camera out, though. This stick here is the northeast corner of my property. There it is over there. The other border goes off that way. And so yesterday was the solstice, and I came out and I marked the sunset. And this morning I woke up and marked the sunrise. So in line with the stick, if you can see this stick right here, that's where the sun came up this morning. All the way around. And yesterday, this rock right here is where the sun went down. So I've never lived this far north before, but it's a pretty dramatic difference. Sunrise and sunset around 6:30 and 9:30. About a 16-hour day during the solstice. Later that day, Paul took everybody on a tour of the lab. First, he told us all about Wafati 0.8, then all about Wafati 0.7.
And I thought that was a rather brilliant idea. So I've already talked to Jesse about.
Then it was on to the bee hut.
I kind of feel like the thing is, there's this.
And finally, the 10x10 Wafati, which is yet to be finished. The next day is back to the classroom for more lecture, and then outside, where Howard told us how to make compost using the Berkeley method. There was a bunch of poles left over from the berm shed project, so I went ahead and grabbed them and brought them to my plot. I'll use them for something, I'm sure. Then Zach Weiss came by and told us all about his work with Sepp Holzer. This was one of my favorite lectures of the whole class. He also told us about Sepp's bone saws. I recorded a video of this and will release it for my patrons. The next day, Dave Hunter came by and told us all about the world of mason bees and other native pollinators. He even brought along some leafcutter bees. He was also joined by Jacqueline Freeman, who told us all about her work with honeybees. I've just finished reading Jacqueline's new book, and I'm very excited to have bees in my plot at some point in the future. Jeremy Watts also came by to teach us about soil and the intricate web of life that supports all plant growth. In that vein, we gathered a bunch of material to make a compost pile at my plot. The weather was unseasonably hot during the PDC, so Paul came down to tell us all about different ways to keep cool during hot weather. During our hands-on section for the afternoon, we all went out to my ant plot and built some A-frame levels, as well as used a water level to mark out some contour lines in the top corner of my plot. Then it was our rest day. We took a hike with Evan up the creek from Paul's property to where the water still flows over ground. It was a much different environment with water around. Back in class the next day, we turned the compost pile at base camp, and then me and Evan got prepared for a hands-on activity at the ant village. Paul let us use this old skiddable structure to turn into a shack for the Ant Village Community Tool Library. We started by removing the old roof from the base, and then installing posts to raise it up. We made sure the posts were square and vertical, and then installed corner and angle braces to make it sturdy. Our newest Ant Village neighbor, Josh, gave it a strength test, and it seemed plenty strong. Finally, we all picked up the roof and put it back on top. Later, me and Evan used some 3/8 boards that had been cut on Paul's mill to make a shiplap siding for the shed. When it's done, it should be a plenty good tool shed for the community. Back at base camp, professional arborist and fellow PDC student Michael Newby showed us how to properly fell a large tree. This one was suffering from bark beetle damage and needed to come down. It was quite a sight to see such a large tree fall down. It was also pretty cool to watch Mike do his thing with the chainsaw. For our earthworks hands-on, everybody got a chance at driving the tractor, as well as the excavator. This was a lot of fun. Here's Carol Ann digging like a pro. For our section on animals, we got a few rabbits, and our fellow student James walked us through how to slaughter them humanely.
You want to get them up there as quick as possible. If you're doing a
It's quite a different experience being involved in the whole process of getting your food.
That's why I don't like.
We had rabbit stew the next day, and we saved the pelts to try our hand at tanning. Finally, it was time to get to work on our permaculture design projects. We split off into groups, each one doing a different section of the lab, base camp, the 2 ant plots, or Nikki and Brandon's 2-acre property in Georgia. We then had our presentations. We all went through our designs in front of Howard, the class, and Paul. Paul, of course, had lots of feedback. This is Nikki and Brandon's design for their 2 acres in Georgia. This is the design for my 1-acre plot in Ant Village. After 2 weeks of intensive lecture, our design projects, and our presentations, came that moment we were all waiting for. We got our certificates and had our picture taken with Howard and Paul. One of the best parts of the PDC was getting to know all the people who we shared this experience with. And here they are, the newest batch of certified permaculture designers from the 2015 Wheaton Labs PDC. Thank you very much to Paul Wheaton and Howard Story, as well as the rest of the guest instructors, for this opportunity.